We've lived on the Upper West Side for a long time, so we knew about Rabbi Wiles when he started 10 years ago, probably approximately. But we never really were involved at all. And several years ago, we started to go to lunch a lot with our friends around the Upper West Side. And we started noticing these people at the table, and people at the table that really had some glow on their face. It took me a little while to figure out that this is probably one of the first Shabbat meals that they've ever had in their life. And we realized there's a lot more going on the West Side, and we probably should be involved in that.
I grew up liking all Jews. I grew up just thinking that we're all Jews, we should all be good to each other. But that Orthodox Jews were kind of a little bit out there. There are a lot of weird things that Orthodox people do, that I do.
You know, my parents tried really hard to give us what they knew, which was ended up being, you know, the 2 high holidays. I did have a bat mitzvah, but it was a group bat mitzvah with about 12 other girls. We each said about 2 lines, and that was the end of my formal Jewish education.
I was very proud of being Jewish. I just never knew what that meant. My parents sent me to a conservative Hebrew school where I went 3 times a week, and that led up to a big bar mitzvah, which was pretty amazing, but also the end of my Jewish learning.
Went to synagogue on the high holidays, like I said, went to Hebrew school, got confirmed, but there wasn't a strong sense of Jewish identity in my family.
I dated non-Jewish girls, but I knew that I would ultimately return to the flock.
I did not. I was nearly convinced that I would marry someone non-Jewish because I didn't date anybody who was Jewish.
At a time where assimilation, you know, continues to be on the rise, there has to be more and more outlets for people to also reconnect with their heritage and to grow in their Judaism.
When we are introduced to these people, and I see a 30-year-old that never experienced Shabbat because he never was taught how to experience Shabbat, well, how is he supposed to know about Shabbat? How is he supposed to know about Kashrut? You must teach those who didn't get that when they were younger, and they can get it when they're older.
I wound up at MJE through a referral of my friend who told me about this dynamic young rabbi, and I went to one of his Saturday morning services, 5th floor.
Totally.
You know, trying to scrounge together a minyan.
The room was tiny.
Tiny. But he had such exuberance, and he made you feel so connected.
I went to different organizations, and I never really connected with anyone. Like, you know, I would go for like 2, 3 lectures, and then I'm like, okay, this is great. It's really not, I don't feel comfortable here. And by pure accident, I stumbled on MJE. And I was so impressed with how they handled the services and with the meal that I said, oh my God, I have to come back here. This is really great.
It's just an amazing, welcoming vibe when you walk in there. I had never experienced anything like it. I was addicted from day one.
When I met David, he waited till our 3rd date to tell me he was kosher. I started to internalize what he had been practicing, and we were very lucky at that point that we started dating, that David was already, you know, a year into being at MJE and very close to Rabbi Wiles, and he asked for some guidance on how to introduce me to that world, which was beyond helpful.
I couldn't have done this without MJE. I have to be honest with you. MJE is an example of an organization that shows the beautiful side of Judaism. If you think of what people's associations are to Judaism, it's all the restrictions on Yom Kippur, it's all the restrictions on Shabbos, it's all the restrictions of what you can and can't eat. And that's what people associate. They assume it's a restrictive religion. But when you go to MJE, they show you how to celebrate Judaism.
I started really looking forward to Kabbalat Shabbat. Friday night I spent on the east side, I walked to the west side and spent time with my friends, and it really gave me a different way of looking at life. It's much easier to keep kosher, keep Shabbat when you have other people who are doing it with you, especially people you like and people you enjoy spending time with.
I found, you know, a group of people who was young, non-judgmental, and completely open to allowing people to learn. People who were warm and inviting and allowing me to explore that part of me.
Many Jewish organizations, they also preach a lot. It's like, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this. Here, you don't have that. You're like, well, this is what it is, you know. If you want to do it, great. If not, go at your own pace. And I really like that.
There's not that pressure that you're doing something wrong. It's you haven't explored what other options there are for you.
One of the great things that MJE does is set us up for Shabbat hospitality. So I get to meet amazing families.
I remember specifically thinking, where would I take her for Friday night dinner first? It was the first time that Ariana had ever spent a Shabbat dinner, and it was amazing.
We have a really amazing community where, you know, I think one of the successes of MJE is the choice of Rabbi Wiles to base it on the Upper West Side. And I think that that is a major factor to its success. Because the people that live here, they're the people that host Shabbat meals, that have people sleep over, that learn with them on Wednesday nights. We actually have an obligation to give tzedakah to poor people. And we have to give to two poor people. This is the community, and these are just people. They do it just because they have a sense of responsibility for their other fellow Jew.
In our busy lifestyles, we're often reluctant to take on something else, and I've been there admittedly as well. And the times that I do, the rewards are just tremendous.
One of the wonderful things I've gotten to do here is one-on-one learning. Last year, I was part of the MJE Fellowship. There were about 16 in my fellowship class. And it was intense learning. It was fantastic. We learned from amazing rabbis from different perspectives so that we could get multiple perspectives on Orthodox Judaism.
I want to share something else I think is really interesting. Not only is it practical, and not only does it have to do with Shabbat, but it also demonstrates how the rabbis operated.
Rabbi Wilds, when he teaches, he makes it fun. He teaches brilliantly because he teaches at multiple levels at the same time.
They appeal to people at every stage. And there isn't a time where I go there where I don't learn something new, even with all the yeshiva education that I have.
Anyone who went to yeshiva through high school and followed a similar path, it's amazing how much we forget in time. It made me realize how much I need to go to classes as well.
Having Rabbi Wilds marry us was not just about the day of, it's not just about under the huppah, it was about the work we did with him for, I would say, a good 4 months before the marriage. He just said, you can call me or email me whenever you want. And he answers at 1 o'clock in the morning on his BlackBerry. It's really, truly amazing.
He said, nothing makes me feel like more of a rabbi than when my community reaches out to me with a question. It totally changed our perspective on from nagging him to giving him the opportunity to what he loves to do most.
When I had the honor of starting MJE in 1998, so we started with programs, Hebrew crash course, beginner service. But the truth is what has emerged is a sense of community. And I really want to encourage each and every one of you to pick one thing and to really take advantage of what we have to offer. Pick something where you can really learn something more about Judaism, more about our heritage, so we can become a stronger people.
The Jewish people are always going to continue. No matter what happens, we are going to survive. The question is, are you going to step forward? Are you going to do the right thing for the Jewish people?
It's very rare for an organization like MJE to exist in the Jewish Hebrew outreach where they have a Purim party in a club. They have an event on top of a rooftop and have a barbecue or a luau. They understand how to integrate New York metro lifestyle with a Jewish event.
Jewish events don't have to happen in a synagogue or a hall of some kind that we might remember from our bar mitzvahs.
MJE does these ski trips. Going skiing on an MJE trip puts kind of a Jewish twist on it.
It was really a memorable time. It gave me like a new perspective into Judaism, that it can be fun.
So Rabbi Wiles with the other rabbis lead this group yearly summer trip to Israel, and you just see the exuberance in his eyes of bringing American Jews to the land of Israel, because that's where our connection to Judaism comes from.
The perspective of a place like MJE is to show us the connection between that history and the tradition, because ultimately people are also looking for authenticity.
When I got to the hotel, I cried for 45 minutes. And it was because it was the first time I ever spoke to Hashem and was even understood what that meant.
To take a person who's 25 and bring them to a street in Jerusalem that's 2,000 years old and walk down that street for the first time, they take that back with them when they come back to this country, and they take back with them for the rest of their lives.
One of the things that compelled me to really get serious is I want to make sure that, God willing, my kids and grandkids will value Judaism just as I do.
We are who we are today because of our families, and not just our parents, but our grandparents and our great-grandparents. They instilled in us the values, the learning, the excitement of Judaism. And that became a part of our fabric, and that's what we instill to our children, and that's what we're going to pass on to them.
Matzah bride.
Matzah bride. Mizona?
Melba toast.
Well, it says on the list Mizonos, but it's supposed to be a mochi.
Okay, good.
It's always been a concern of mine how I'll be able to instill the experiences of the past in my children in order for them to feel the commitment and joy of Judaism that I feel. My father's parents had died during the Holocaust, and he was one of 7 sisters and 2 other brothers, all who stayed strongly Jewish, committed, and observant. I've always found that to be sort of an amazing result, that they were orphaned and still, for the years that they had with their parents, they had received a message that was invaluable, and they were able to pass it down to their own children and their grandchildren and so many generations already.
As a parent, a Jewish parent, our kids staying Jewish is one of the utmost concerns. Assimilation and Jewish continuity has been a question for over 2,000 years, and Hashem will always make sure that the Jews are here. But that doesn't mean that we don't have to do anything to make that happen, that there's not a partnership between Hashem and the Jewish people to continue that. We have to be a partner in that brit, in that treaty that Hashem had made with the Jewish nation.
I was going to MJE as a single person and learning more about my heritage. But now, as a married couple, seeing the family unit together and a lot of the Jewish principles, now it's clicking even more and making sense even more. And more couples are now getting engaged at MJE.
There's like a simcha every week, thank God, and it's just unbelievable. You come to shul. This was never, you know, baby screaming in the background kind of shul, and now there's a million kids running around. And I get very excited about the prospect of bringing up my daughter in this community that has done so much for me, done so much for us.
We had obvious bris there. We've been to double brises there, triple baby namings there, and it was just a beautiful experience. It's just a growing community.
It's adapting to the popularity that it has and provides the framework for you to start practicing
right, and transition to the next
living
stage
that.
of your life, right? Totally.
MJE is like the training ground for life.
I think about how they've helped transform the wider Jewish community. I sometimes think to myself, imagine if there were MJEs in Jewish communities all over the United States. Imagine if this could be replicated. I mean, how it could help transform the Jewish community in the United States.
About a month before we were getting married, I just looked at David and I said, how did I live without this for all of these years? This was a world I didn't know existed or I knew that I needed in my life, but it has brought amazing, beautiful things into my life.
Places like MJE are so incredibly important because to do things that stretch you, really, really difficult. And if it wasn't for my friends and the community I had, it never would have happened.
It's really an amazing growth to have something in your life that's bigger than you. We're not stopping just because we got married a few weeks ago. We're gonna still continue to grow and ask questions and have meetings, and who knows where I'm gonna end up. I may be more religious than him in a few years.
I want to continue growing and learning and teaching and being part of the MJE and just the Jewish community and the people in general. And creating a better world for people like Abby.